has instituted an award for literature in the name of its founder. So the credit goes to Pakistan, that Pakistan Academy of Letters has respected the memory of its founder as well, and also the cause of world literature. Because in India we don't have any prize after Mahatma Gandhi, or in Africa after Nkrumah, or other world leaders. But I think the Academy is the first to think of Quaid-e-Azam and Pakistan. And I think a very good connection has been made between literature and democracy, because literature can thrive only in democracy. And it is democracy and the bullets of peace which can really break the silence, as as our poet has said. So I congratulate the poet and also his daughter, because she seems to be a very slim girl, maybe a teenager. She is an economist, a financial entity in its own right in her country, and is dealing with the investment proposals coming from third world countries for Swedish aid. She is a professional academic. But her interest in tango dance is much more than her interest in literature. And that I found after meeting her. I think I've been fortunate to meet Mr. Kurman and Miss Kurman 2 or 3 times today, and I have come to the conclusion that there are people like Olof Palme in Sweden, a great socialist, who did a lot for the third world. And we shouldn't forget Gunnar Myrdal and so many other Swedish humanitarians who have done a lot for the third world. So, sentiments expressed by Mr. Kurman are not very strange. They are coming from a country which is, I think, used to these sentiments, has been used to these sentiments for some decades. And it is the good fortune that the jurists who are deciding for the nomination of the award, I think were agreed on Mr. Kurman, and we have got in that selection a very eminent poet with us. And now he will always speak of Pakistan, as he told me today in the morning when we were visiting the Cultural Heritage Museum, that he didn't think that Pakistan was so rich in culture. And Pakistan could boast of a civilization going back to 9,000 years BC. So it's a great achievement that we should win friends. We should try to win as many friends as possible. And literature is the way, a very natural way to win friends. Because if you are eager to appreciate literature from other countries, then they will be naturally eager to think of you in a very different way. Thank you.
Out the essential connection in terms of the temperament of Mr. Kurman's verse and the kinds of verse that is being written in this country or by Asian poets. Mr. Kurman was reading translations actually, not the original work in Swedish. Is the English translations of his own work, and I think the Punjabi and Urdu translations of his poems will be able to convey the same temperament as you have already noted. I now call upon Mr. Shahid Mahmood Nadeem, also a writer, a playwright. We're not using any other titles and words and designations here, to speak about Mohtama Shaheed Benazir Bhutto.
Mr. Farazullah Babar, Professor Mansur, and our friends from Sweden, and ladies and gentlemen. I have had the honor of being next door neighbor of Shaheed Bhutto when he was in prison and was sentenced to death, and then translated his last book written from prison, If I Am Assassinated. And I thought, then I had to leave the country, and I thought that this is it. I mean, this country has no future if it treats its greatest leader they ever had, a leader with a great vision of real international standard, a super patriot, an intellectual, poet and a philosopher, as he himself called him. So it was a very depressing period, and then the fundamentalist dictator had taken over the country, and people were being executed and flogged and put in prison. I myself spent some time in prison, and I saw young, teenagers being flogged just for displaying the sign of V or showing a photograph of Mr. Bhutto during that period in 78. So, and then when I was in London, I started hearing about the daughter, that how she has been forced to take on the leadership role along with her mother. And one could only sympathize with her because we knew her as a television anchor and as a bright student. And we thought that she has been through such a great tragedy. And then her period of incarceration and the stories about victimization and harassment of this young girl who had lost her father. So we didn't know what to make of it. How will she cope with it? And then she came to London. I think this was the first time she was allowed to leave the country and address a gathering in London. And we thought that she'll be full of anger and contempt and fire and this feeling of revenge. And some of us who had not lost the father but lost a leader, we were quite surprised and to some extent frustrated to see her coming on the stage and talking about her future vision and her political strategy and the international context in which People's Party or the democratic forces should fight the dictator. So Benazir, even in those times when she got the first opportunity to be in a free country and to express herself freely, we did not see any sign of hate, revenge, or anger as normally one would expect from a person who has been through such a difficult period. And then if you trace her progress as a leader, and then in 1986 when she came back, the kind of response she got, the kind of the love and affection which was showered on her, and the way she conducted herself throughout, I mean, when she became the Prime Minister, she forgave the murder of her father, not only one, but the politicians and the judges and the media people who had been a part of that. So again, here was a woman who had become the first ever Muslim Prime Minister of a Muslim country. And we did not see any sign of that revenge, which is human, which is normal. She was really extraordinary in that sense. And then later on, when she, after going through a prolonged period of harassment by a so-called civilian leader and civilian government, and then by a military dictator, she came back, and that's the image which I think we all